In a little under 1 week, Rocket Lab will be reporting their earnings. Let's take a look at what we can expect from the Q4 results, as well as what they've been up to so far in Q1. My name is Scott. Welcome to the channel. Let's talk Rocket Lab. Let's start things off with the Electron. On January 31st, Rocket Lab launched their 4-of-a-kind mission. This was also known as Electron Mission number 43. The Electron 4-of-a-kind mission was unique in that it was a recovery mission, and with that we got a ton of new information. Let's hop over to our valuation model, and more specifically the recovery tab, to get a closer look at what has changed regarding recovery. The distance to the recovery zone from a previous mission was approximately 400 kilometers. This distance has been updated to reflect 4-of-a-kind's splashdown site of approximately 580 kilometers. On top of that, this mission gave us a clear outline of the time it takes from the time that
confirms stage 1 splashdown
was announced to the time of arrival. This was approximately 18 minutes. Taking this 18 minutes and converting the DP-1C worker's speed to kilometers per hour, we can find the distance by multiplying the speed and the time, arriving us at a distance of 5.5 kilometers from the point where the vessel was waiting to the point where the Electron is in focus. Multiplying this number by 2, of course, because you have to go there and back again, arrives us at 11 kilometers, which we will then add to the original 580 kilometers. And since we're close enough already, let's just round this up to 600 kilometers. This increases the overall fuel consumption to just shy of 11,000 liters and increases the hours of travel to 65 hours. So on closer inspection, the net change for rent, fuel, and labor has increased from 166,000 to, we'll call it 172,000. Next, with the increased time of travel, we're looking at 3 days, maybe 4, instead of what we had originally, 2. Right around the time of recovery, we can see the maximum number of people in a single screen at any given time, that being 5 people. Comparing this with previous photos of recoveries, I'm under the impression that maybe we're a little bit high, and assuming that there was 10 people per recovery on the vessel. So we're going to lower the head count from 10 to 8. So all in all, the previous assumption that we had was 166,000. If Rocket Lab is going to be renting this for 3 days, you're looking closer to 248,000. Or for 4 days, you're looking closer to 325,000. Important to note as well is that the recovery ship went out a few days prior to intercept on January 27th, prior to the mission being delayed due to bad weather. So with the vessel having to go all the way there and all the way back, it makes me wonder did Rocket Lab had to pay for both of those excursions, or is it just kind of this, I don't know the structure, I guess. Really what I'm saying is, I don't understand if Rocket Lab would have had to pay, we'll call the 3-day the intermediary. Did the recovery go from 250,000, we'll call it, to 500,000? Because if so, it kind of underlines my next point here. Let's get into it. The second mission for the quarter was originally planned to be a recovery mission as well. During a couple recent conferences, CFO Adam Spice spoke to the recovery attempts. And I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says each attempt is getting better and better with each iteration. And he especially praises the most recent one, Mission 43, the 4-of-a-kind recovery. But then he goes on to say this.
So the plan is to do, at least one more recovery mission this year. And then the next step would be fly a full power pack, so 9 engines. If you think about when a reflight of a full booster, the plan a year ago was to do that this year. I think now with all of the focus that we have on bringing Neutron to the pad, I think that probably is not really in focus for 2024 at this point. And we're really much more focused on supporting the higher launch cadence, getting Neutron to the pad, and then the incremental kind of value of reusability is something that we probably put a little bit off to the side while we execute those 2 more important things.
Now, I might get pushback for what I'm about to say, but I don't understand why they feel the need to focus on just the Neutron or just the higher cadence. I'm not sure why you can't do a bit of everything, but I'm wondering if maybe sending the vessel out and back and out and back, I wonder if maybe that had something to do with it. Because if you take the original assumption that we had for the recoveries, let's just call it the new assumption, the 3 days to rent. Going from 250,000 per recovery, doubling that, and if you're going to multiply that through each of the Electron recoveries throughout the year, that they could be twice of what's expected, I kind of get that. But I'm just a little unclear on why you have to choose one or the other. The simple math here is Neutron, 55 million, or Electron, 7.5 to 8 million. I get that. But It's like saying, well, we can't focus on star trackers because we're focusing on reaction wheels, or we can't focus on launch because we're focused on space systems. There's 1,500 employees there, and I don't know. This is one of those things where I'm just going to trust management for it. It's probably something, it's definitely something that they understand better than I do. It's just a bit of a bummer because if you're not new to the channel, I talk about the recovery stuff quite a bit, and I don't understand how we went from, 8 recoveries to 2, 3, maybe? I'm just not understanding. Hope we get some clarity on the upcoming call. As far as the next missions go, on March 10th, we have Synspective's 4th launch with Rocket Lab, which will be the 3rd of 3 in the current contract, with 2 more signed for what we can expect to be launches later this year. Past that, on March 20th, we have an NRO nighttime launch from Wallops. This will be Rocket Lab's 4th mission from Launch Complex 2, aka Wallops, Virginia. The mission is scheduled to be Rocket Lab's 4th launch of 2024 and 46th Electron mission overall. Now, with 5 launches guided for Q1, we're kind of getting to the line a little bit. But if we hop over to the launch tracker, we can see the delta between the last 2 launches is, we'll call it 20 days. We got 20 and we got 19. Now, to put this simply, the time delta is the time in between the 2 dates. So to really simplify what I'm saying, if we add 20 days to March 10th, which is Synspective, that is one of the launches that is going to be from the Mahia Peninsula. And also, if we are to expect a 5th launch from the same launch pad, we're looking at 20 days. So March 10 plus another 20 days, that's going to put us right at the line for, we'll call it March 30th. Now, whether that actually happens and there's no delays, that's TBD. But fingers crossed for that one. As far as who it's going to be, I have my money on Black Sky, Capella, or the NASA-cased rideshare. So that's the Electron. Let's move over to the Neutron. For this section, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take a whole bunch of quotes from recent conferences, recent interviews, recent announcements. We're going to kind of condense them all together to paint an overall picture. I guess we'll start with the Archimedes, the hot test fire. This is something that was originally planned to be done by the end of last year, I guess, 2023. We're still kind of waiting on news, but it seems like we're on the brink of finally getting this hot fire test. So most recent announcement was just in the past couple of weeks here from Adam Spice. He mentioned that the hot fire test is targeted for the end of Q1 or early Q2. So very quick here. Basically the next month, you can expect to hear some news with that. So as far as when the Neutron is actually launching, we'll try to settle the debate here. Is it on the pad at the end of the year? Is it integrated at the end of the year? Is it actually launching at the end of the year? Let's take a look at a few clips and I will jump in as needed.
Launch is key, and part of that is building a medium launch vehicle that we're bringing to market at the end of this year.
The plan still is, hopefully, the target is to sort of launch by about year end.
Yep. The goal is to have a integrated Neutron on the pad by the end of this year.
We also are developing a larger launch vehicle called Neutron. Electron, our current launch vehicle, flown over 40 times, lifts around about 300 kgs to low Earth orbit. Our Neutron launch vehicle, which we're hoping to put on the pad next year, lifts 13,000 kgs to orbit, so it's a bit of a scale up.
So before we continue, this podcast seems to have been recorded last year. There's another quote from the interview that it mentions
the Capstone mission we launched to the moon last year.
Capstone was a 2022 launch, so I guess this was recorded in 2023. Seems like for whatever reason, Wharton's just been sitting on the podcast waiting to release it. So for the final and most recent clip, this is the most telling, in my opinion, regarding not only the timing as of what exactly is going on at the end of the year, but also the expected cadence for the next few years. Check this out.
We still have the target of getting Neutron to the pad by the end of this year.
Yep.
Which again, if we can do that, it'll be an unbelievable accomplishment compared to what other vehicles have taken to get to that point.
Right. First flight, fourth quarter this year. That'll be done out of New
Goal,
Zealand.
Get it to the pad, but nope, that's
Get it to the pad.
at Wallops.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're emphasizing getting it to the pad. Tell me what's that about?
Getting it to the pad could be getting to the pad and launching, or getting to the pad and then launching shortly thereafter.
Okay, got it.
And in our model, we assume we launch end of this year, and then next year we launch maybe 3 times, and then maybe the next year we launch 8 times. So it's not like we're planning some explosive, like we're going to be launching this thing 50 times within by year 3 or something like that. But we think there could be dramatic upside to the kind of the opportunity set. Again, we'd have to evaluate kind of the incremental investment to support that much more significant
So to wrap this section up, during the Cowen presentation, it was mentioned that after the hot fire test, they'll have more information as far as the timeline that the Neutron is on. So at that point, they're hoping to sign the first customers in the next couple quarters. So I guess around summertime, we can expect some big news regarding the Neutron, assuming all goes well, of course. Moving on to space systems. This particular clip, this is not from, I guess this would be from last quarter, from Q4. But I listened to it again recently, and I don't know how I missed this the first time. I'm just going to let this clip play and kind of speak for itself.
So a few years ago, Rocket Lab purchased Sinclair Interplanetary, which is a company in Toronto in Canada, and they were already making and established in making the smaller wheels. So we have built on that technology and that knowledge, and we have put in a line here in Auckland in New Zealand to make the 12 NMS wheel, which is our largest offering at Rocket Lab. So the line is sized to make 2,000 wheels in a year. So one will be coming off the line roughly every hour. And actually from start to finish, it's about 2 weeks to make one wheel.
So my takeaways from this is, first thing, it's mentioned that we have put in a line. So she's speaking past tense, not we're putting in a line, but we have put in a line sized to make 2,012 NMS wheels per year. So from there we have the volume. So next, let's look at the pricing. If we go to the Rocket Lab website, we can look at this particular wheel. And from there, we can click on the data sheet and pricing. Now, this pricing is for an individual wheel, so I'm not sure if there is a bulk buy discount, but we do know that the Electron discount for buying more than one launch is 20%. So what I mean by that is if you think of Black Sky, they bought 5 launches at once. To my knowledge, they get a 20% discount. The reason for that, not only to encourage the customer to buy more launches, but it's also more cost effective for Rocket Lab to launch more Electrons than fewer Electrons. So if we assume this 20% here as well for space systems as we can for the Electron, the new price for these wheels would be in the range of $80,000 to $96,000 per wheel. So taking this number, multiplying that by 2,000 wheels per year, we're going to land at 160 to 192 million per year. So even if we did a 50% discount, we're looking at 50 to 60,000 per wheel times 2,000 wheels per year, 100 to 120 million net. So this compares to the full year of 2023 space systems revenue of, we'll call it $173 million. Now, keep in mind, this is just for one component of the space system. So something big's coming. They haven't announced it yet, but something big's coming. On to the valuation. On January 31st, following the successful launch for Spire and North Star, Rocket Lab released their preliminary results. What we'll do is we'll kind of skim through this. Basically, everything's already been laid out. And not that Rocket Lab is an earnings positive company anyway. So, I mean, the bottom line doesn't really matter, but we might as well run through this while it's here. All right, so we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down. Q4 launch revenue was a slight bit higher than expected. It was originally at 8.25 million. We're going to bump that up to 8.5 million. This reflects a single launch within the quarter, which was the IQPS mission on December 15th. From there, we have space systems revenue being bumped up to $51.5 million. This will be on the higher end range of the original guidance from Q3. GAAP gross margin is being increased from 24.2% up to 25.8%. For OPEX, we have $63.5 million, which is just outside of the guidance from Q3. Just a little on the high side, but nothing major. Interest expense has come down to $1.4 million, which is compared to the original guidance of $2 million. So putting this all together, that brings net income to negative $48.5 million, which falls within the range of negative $52.5 to $49 million. So past that, we have depreciation and amortization expected to be $8.2 million. Stock-based compensation dropped from $14.1 million from the previous quarter down to $10.2 million in Q4. So as far as guidance that exceeds what we just went over, there's a couple more tidbits that we can gather from those recent conferences. So during the Cowen presentation, when Adam Spice was asked about the cash burn, he mentioned that the
EBITDA profile, it's not going to look all that different in 2024 than was experienced in 2023.
Now, past this, in this same conference, I've heard some people taking away that Adam Spice said cash flow positive by mid-2025. That's really not what was said, though, unfortunately. He says that
where we really turn the corner is getting that minimum viable product to the pad at the end of the year, then that we really will have crested the majority of that kind of initial R&D spend, and also from a cash flow perspective, the investment in infrastructure.
So you think you really should get a good turn in 25?
Absolutely, yeah. We think the middle of 2025 is kind of the real kind of turning point from from a cash flow generation perspective.
So previously in that same interview, he mentioned that they've invested $100 million so far in Neutron, and that they're expecting to invest another $100 million this year on top of, basically he combined it all together, all the infrastructure assistance, so to speak, would be another $50 million that's kind of like helping develop the second stage, helping build bridges, helping just along the way. That all in all, the Neutron spend is going to be $250 to $300 million across R&D and CapEx. Now this is to get what he calls the minimum viable product onto the pad. The first Neutron, the first launch pad that you see is not going to be the final iteration of that. To take that a step further, Electron 45 is going to be basically the final version of Electron, so to speak. We're definitely going to see the Neutron develop over the next few years, but to think that it's like 2024 ends, the Neutron's here, and that's that, no, absolutely not. They're going to continue to invest. That's going to continue to reflect in CapEx, going to continue to reflect in R&D, and it's not, I don't know. I've said it before, my expectations of when Rocket Lab is going to be EBITDA, net income, and cash flow positive, and it's definitely not mid-2025. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Time will tell. So in those conferences, there was a couple mentions of like, hey, you guys just raised all this capital. What's the plan? The speculation regarding an acquisition at this point is it's a given. Now, whether it's something as expensive as a Raycon, I don't think it is. It kind of makes sense, except the price. The price doesn't really make sense. I don't know if you could like fraction part of Raycon off piecemeal and we could acquire that. I don't know if that would make sense either, if that would kind of like kill the overall synergy of the business. I don't know why I'm talking about Raycon so much. I definitely think that we are set for some news. I don't know, and then I don't know how soon that news is going to happen. So as far as what the actual acquisition is going to be, Adam Spice mentioned that some of it could be related to the satellite bus, and he also mentioned that it could be payload related. Now, payload is obviously a very broad category, and when he was pressed during the most recent conference, the city conference, he mentioned that they haven't pinned it down what exactly they want to do. So, I mean, my best bet is going to be something akin to SpaceX, whether that's like, satellite internet or satellite to cell phone. It could be, I mean, if you're familiar with the Rocket Lab Discord, you probably know someone named Count. He's on one about, it could be its own video, but essentially it's like solar energy directed to the Earth. I don't know. I thought he was crazy at first, but the more he talks about it, the more I'm like, okay, shit. And then, I mean, if you want to take it a step further, I'll play a clip here from Peter Beck in a recent interview.
Yeah, I mean, I love energy, not so much aerospace, but I love energy and energy problems. And I think really the key to ongoing human prosperity is going to be how do we solve energy? And take rockets are a great example. I mean, we really haven't changed a rocket since the 1950s. We still take an oxidizer and some buried dinosaurs and light them up. Look, it's horrifically inefficient. The combustion efficiency is really great, but as far as an efficient way to get off this planet, it's just not there. If we want to be a truly multiplanetary species, we're going to have to solve that problem. I get very excited with antimatter and energy kind of based problems and obviously fusion and all those things, because I think ultimately those can solve a lot of problems, just not down here on Earth, but in space as well.
So when he started talking about energy, I was like, oh, okay, this is that solar thing that crazy dude's talking about. But it turns out that maybe he's talking more like propulsion. I don't know. There's a lot of avenues that Rocket Lab has available, and whether they do one, whether they do a bunch, I mean, I'm excited. It's going to be really cool. And I mean, a week ago, I would have expected an announcement right away. I mean, I guess we could get one with earnings, but I guess time will tell. To be more accurate, I think it's safe to assume that we could get something more related to the satellite bus and maybe not so much the payload. So, I mean, if there is something like a timing device like Raycon would do, it would kind of make sense to acquire that because you're going to need it pretty much regardless what avenue you take. But if we get some announcement that Rocket Lab has acquired something that's related to telecom, or, I mean, there's a lot of different avenues. But really what I'm trying to get at is we're going to finally get this announcement whenever it comes. of what this acquisition is. And if it's not something that is general for all satellite buses, that is basically going to tell us exactly what Rocket Lab's plan is. So once we get this hot fire, we're going to get the contracts. We're probably around the same time going to get this acquisition. And I think over the next few months, it's going to become crystal clear what Rocket Lab has planned for the next decades, honestly. If you're getting value from the video, hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing and make sure you hit that notification bell. Moving on to the kind of expectations and hopes for what we get from earnings. For the Electron, I'm hoping to get some clarity around the recoveries. It's honestly kind of a bummer that it seems like they're kind of putting everything on hiatus, including the reuse missions. I don't know what's going on there. It'd just be cool of them to kind of shed some light on that. On top of that, some new contract announcements would be sweet, but at the same time, it's like, when would they announce them for? Because we're booked out to like mid 2025 at this point. So it's I mean, they got to announce them eventually, but right now it's like, do they really need to announce something that's like 18 to 24 months out? I don't know. So for the Neutron, I'm hoping to hear a date for the hot fire. I'm also wondering if it's going to be like a big thing, not like a live stream, because I mean, I don't know if you would do a live stream for that sort of a thing, or if it's going to be similar to the cryogenic tank testing, where it was just like uploaded to their X account, and it was just like that tank just exploding. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to watch that. It's going to be just so damn cool. For space systems, it'd be nice to get a bit more information on who the reaction wheels were for, but I'm wondering if this kind of ties in with the Neutron customer announcement, where it could be like, hey, we're launching for a certain somebody, and we've been building satellites for a certain somebody, and isn't it exciting that we have this certain somebody as a customer? Past that, for the valuation or the financial part of it, I'm curious to know about the acquisition. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what they're planning. Tell us what you're planning. I want to know what you guys think, though. What do you think? What do you think's coming down the pike? What are you expecting? What are you hoping for? Leave a note in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, be sure to check out the Patreon to view and download the valuation models that I reference to make these videos here for you, including price targets that go all the way out to 2030. Thank you guys so much for the hangout. Hope to see you in the next one. Have an awesome day.